Hi, everybody, and welcome to Friday Night Flock Talk. I'm Robin Sullivan of the Leather Elves. We, I think there may be some people who aren't always here on tonight, so I just want to welcome you all. And we do a little bit of housekeeping right out of the gate. You can like the Leather Elves on Facebook. That way you get notifications. You can check our Facebook page to catch surprise sales, pop-up events. You can follow us on Instagram. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. So there's a lot of different ways to be notified of what's been going on. For those of you that don't know about it, we're doing the Rockstar Tour. Carrie Ellen from Bird Gardens of Naples and myself will be doing the Rockstar Tour. We'll be leaving in July, hitting 26, stopping at 26 rescues and some other facilities. And we want to thank all of our sponsors for the Rockstar Tour. We couldn't do it without them. And the rescue spotlight this weekend is the Charlie Brown Bird Rescue in Ohio. Any boxes ordered for them this weekend by midnight on Sunday will be doubled, and the donors will receive a $25 gift card for themselves to the Leather Elves. So that QR code right there will take you right to the Rockstar donation page. So tonight's talk is or discussion can get heated, and legislative issues can get very emotional depending on which side of the fence you're on. For those of you that know me, you know that I kind of play with people on both sides of the fence. So it's just for me, it's about aviculture as a whole, and tonight's discussion is really a way to let you guys know what's currently going on out there in legislation across the country and how you can be involved. So we really want to keep this a civil discussion tonight. This is not the forum to discuss the pros and cons of either side. This is more about how to get involved regardless of which side you're on. So I need to introduce my guest. She's a very special guest. And someone special to me. But I do need to do something before I do that. Jodie has been in her position as legislative VP of the American Federation of Aviculture for a very short time. Hey, Jodie.
Hi, Robin.
But I do want to thank the past VP, Adrienne Mock. Adrienne listens quite often. She's on a lot, most Fridays. And I wanted to thank Adrienne and give her a shout out for her years of service in this position. She has moved on to a different challenge within AFA, but we wanted to thank her for all the work that she's done. So
Yes,
um,
absolutely.
and I know Jodie feels the same way. So I've got to do your bio, Jodie, and it's in tiny print. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Hi,
Good,
Nick. Hi,
good.
everybody.
Okay, so Jodie Olmos has owned pets for most of her life: cats, dogs, guinea pigs, and parrots. In 2020, she was elected to the American Federation of Aviculture's Northwestern Regional Director. That's a mouthful. And she is now the legislative vice president for AFA. She has also owned and operated Kiko's Toy Chest and Kiko's Parrots, which is a parrot and parrot supply store. She did that for 16 years. Congratulations on that, Jodie. That's a pretty
Thank you.
amazing run. So from 1993 to 2001, she worked with several judges in the state of Michigan to pass legislative measures to incorporate a law that focused on equality in treatment for nonviolent drug and alcohol related offenses. She successfully lobbied both in Washington, D.C. and the state of Michigan for what is now known as Adult Treatment Court. The Equality in Treatment Act became a law in Michigan in 2001, and she was involved in that program until 2008 when she moved to the greater Seattle area and, thankfully for us, followed her passion of working with parrots. In 2018, she worked with the city council in the city of Tacoma to defeat a bill that would have banned pet sales from stores within that city. In 2019, she helped defeat the same bill at the county level. From 2019, she assisted in getting parrots reclassified in Pierce County from an exotic animal to livestock. So that's I mean, that's a big, big deal. Keeping animals in our homes and the ability to purchase them from the place of our own choosing is very important to Jodie. I'm tired just reading your bio. That's pretty impressive.
Thank you.
That's a lot of work. Thank you. Um, so, all right. The first thing I wanted to talk about, Jodie, was animal rights versus animal welfare. So, if I'm out there and I don't know, I'm not in the business, I'm not involved in the industry at all, and I hear animal rights, right? It sounds great, right? We love our pets, we love the animals in our lives. Animal rights sounds wonderful. What's the difference between animal rights and animal welfare?
For me, animal welfare is absolutely how we care for our animals, our husbandry practices. I don't like to use the word quote right way because we all have our ways, and as long as it gets us where we need to be, that's whatever's right for you. Animal rights are those people that, and let me make a statement here. I care greatly about animal welfare, the way an animal is taken care of. Animal rights are people who are using emotions to override everything to take pets away from us. That's what they're doing.
I think, and that's one of the very heated issues that does come up. And I honestly believe we're all fighting for we all feel the same way about our pets, right? We love having pets in our lives. We really want to do that. And sometimes things come up in legislation, they come up, through different channels, and they're not necessarily the most positive when it comes to that goal of having pets in our lives. Um, so I know that so I just wanted to make that clarification. I remember working on a legislation in Massachusetts, and I had a friend who was working as a legislative assistant for one of the representatives, and he came to me and he said, "Oh, you're gonna love Patrick. Patrick, I love working for him. He loves animals. He's all about animal rights." And I went, "Oh." And I said, "Okay, let's talk about the definition of that." And he goes, "Yeah, yeah, just all the things that are good for animals and making sure they're taken care of correctly." And I'm like, "Yep, but that's animal welfare." So I think all of us need to educate ourselves and others as to what animal rights versus animal welfare is.
Yes.
So and as time went on, Patrick figured out what animal welfare was, and suddenly that's what he was really about. Um, so there's a lot going on, Jodie. There's a lot happening.
There
Um,
is. We
it,
have
it's
22 bills in 15 states
22
this year
bills.
currently. Yes. Um, right. um, so there's a lot of things out there. We have pet sale bans. We have pet ownership bans. We of certain pets. Um, we do have some animal emergency laws that no, we're not fighting those. That also allow us during natural disasters for hotels and first responders to take those animals too, so that people don't stay behind and get hurt. So there's some really good ones out there for us too.
Yeah, and I think that's important. That it's not all negative. I mean, there are some things that are happening that are good. We just need to kind of sift through and figure out what works and what doesn't. Um, so, all right, I have a political science background. A lot of good that degree did me. But look at where I ended up. But so I understand how this works, and I came at it from a different angle. I come at it from a different angle. But what if people want to figure out, like what's going on in Idaho? What's going on in their state? How do they do that,
So
Jody?
you can go to your state's website, state's legislative website. Usually, if you just type in into your Google bar, um, Washington State Legislative, I'll use that one because I know what it is.
Mhm.
You can go to that site. You can look up any bills on your state. Some states are a little different than others, and we tend to pull our hair out with some of those states looking for things, but there will be a search bar. You can type in keywords like pet, animal act, pet ownership, pet sales, pet whatever. Um, and those will pop up.
Mhm. And I
And you
I
can
think
read the entire bill, um, and get into that's where we look at the bill. You have to read the whole bill to understand what they're really doing. The title of the bill always looks wonderful and looks like, oh yeah, that's something we want to do. But you have to read the bill. In some instances, I will use Washington. We have been fighting to SB 5065, which is a traveling animal act that hit the governor's desk today. I don't know if Abbott has done an update on that yet, um, but we're hoping it's all about definition and how they define. And you'll find sometimes that in one definition it says this, and then the next one contradicts.
Mhm.
So we are working really hard to get some things vetoed that could take away in the future Flight Club Foundation in our area and what they do, and other animal education things that go into schools, that go into fairgrounds, 4-H, all of that stuff. So, but you really have to get into the bill and look at it and not just go by the title.
So, Jody, you mentioned you didn't know whether Abbott had done an update or not. Nick put up afabirds.org, and
Yes,
if you go to afabirds.org and you click, it says legislative alert, I believe. You
yes.
click on that, it will tell you changes that have happened that day. And so, Abbott Hoffman has been incredible getting this information up there. And so, if you know something's going on, check on there and see if it's been added, if it's listed. Um, Abbott says all the bills that we're following are updated. Abbott's been
Thank
great.
you,
Thank you
Abbott.
so much.
Abbott has been wonderful right hand for me, as well as Nick, during this transition and things. So, and be aware that these bills, their status can change at any given moment in the day.
Yeah,
Abbott and I watched one change in 2 minutes the other day, right here in Washington. We were like, whoa.
yeah,
So once a day check is fine. Do it in the evening. So yeah, we things change very quickly in the legislative world.
yeah. And they show up on
Well,
the.
they
They can
can
show
be.
up. They can show up on the agenda, and you didn't know that was happening. Buddy says it's on the AFA homepage. So if you go to afabirds.org, right on the homepage there, you can click on that and get that information. So I know there are people sitting out there who are saying, well, this doesn't affect me, right? It's never gonna affect
Mhm.
me. I have a canary. It doesn't matter, right? Right? Is that right,
Right?
Jody? My
Yeah,
canary doesn't matter.
it does. It absolutely does. So in a lot of these bills, we may see things like cat, dog, rabbit.
Mhm.
Um, then there's a comma, and it could say after that comma, but not limited to.
Yeah.
Or even if it doesn't say that, at some point in the future, it opens the door for more
Mhm.
animals to be added to that list without any hearing or any vote or anything. So it
Yeah.
absolutely can and will eventually affect parrot people.
And I was thinking, when we were talking earlier, I was trying to come up with a list of who it affects. And so companion parrot owners,
Mhm.
manufacturers. So as somebody that has a bird toy company, um, this could potentially affect me if there's, if there are bans on ownership or limits on ownership. So, no, I probably don't want somebody with a macaw collection living right next door. But I don't want to say, no, you absolutely cannot do that anywhere in Pittsfield, in my town, right? Because
Right.
that what happens then to my sales? My sales drop because if you only have one macaw, you don't need as much as if you have 10. Food manufacturers will be affected if
It
these changes
affects
happen.
everybody. It
Yeah.
affects the very state that is trying to place these bills. Just in Washington state alone, doing the research, the pet industry, not just pet stores, the pet industry in general, out here collects over $2 million a year in sales tax from that industry.
Mhm.
So it affects the state as well. And
Yeah.
sometimes in Washington, that's where we go after them so that they understand that revenue loss isn't just to the manufacturer or the small business or, um, it affects the state as well.
Mhm. And when you talk about that, it affects law enforcement and animal control officers too. I mean,
Absolutely.
it changes what they do and how they do it, in some cases. So, all right, so now we know that we're all under the gun. Whether good, bad, or indifferent, how we feel about it, it's going to affect us in some way. Um,
Correct.
even if we're on different sides of the fence, it's going to affect birds in our lives in some way. So what can people do? We talked about going to, usually it's state.gov, like whatever your
Right.
state is, massachusetts.gov, maine.gov. Um, and so you can find out what's going on, what bills are being heard. Then what can people do, Jody?
It's really important if you don't know who your state representatives are at a city, county, and state level, you can go to their websites, put in your address. They will tell you the full list of who your representatives are. They will give you those emails. They will give you a phone number. And sometimes, if they have an office here or wherever you're at, they'll give you the address to that office. I don't suggest you just show up at the office without an appointment because you'll be turned away. Um, Reach out, send letters. If you see something in a hearing that's going to what we call a hearing phase, go send in a letter, testify. It's all sounds scary, right? Because I'm not one to talk in front of people. Um, and the biggest thing, if you testify, please don't read from a sheet of paper. They don't want that. They want to hear from your heart. Be able to summarize that letter you wrote in about 2.5 to 3 minutes. Um, Without a lot of emotion. You can certainly show
Mhm,
some, but going to those hearings, that's where you can make some things happen and talk to
mhm,
those people after the meeting, after the committee hearing, talk to their aides. Um, Debbie Goodrich and I have done a lot of work out here in the last 2 months. We just didn't quite change enough people's minds, but we changed quite a few. So
mhm.
it makes a difference.
And I think, there is a point of order here, though.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Buddy Buddy suggested that Buddy suggested that the add-ons of different animals, there has to be an amendment. There would have to be a vote, um, from his experience. Um, so
I want to
my
live where
concern
he
is
lives.
I know, right? My concern is, I'm a big fan of proactive versus reactive, okay?
Yes.
So I feel like I mean, we all think that everybody loves birds, everybody has birds, everybody wants to have birds, and it is not always the case. And I think education is really critical. Have you ever talked to any of the legislators that like don't even know anybody that owns a bird?
I have.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have. We've actually had a at a New Palestine, Indiana, had that situation pop up where, for those of you listening that know about New Palestine, they had an ordinance they wanted to change, and it was really more geared towards reptiles
Mhm,
until they used the word exotic, put the reptiles' names in, and then said, but not limited to. And they actually admitted, and you don't see this very often, But that city council admitted they needed to be more educated, and they voted no. To those of you, Nancy Vesely, if you're listening, Joanna Roth, thank you so much for going in person. Joanna, thank you for testifying. But I know that after that meeting, they all hung around and got to talk to those council members because they want to learn. So please don't think that talking to somebody isn't going to be enough, because sometimes it is. If you
Yeah,
can reach one
absolutely.
person,
And, I
Buddy,
think
thank you for sending the letters. I mean, we do a lot of stuff behind the scenes that, and our other thing is, if you see something and you don't think we know it, please contact us. Let us
mhm.
know.
Even if you
Even
think
if
we
you
know
think
it.
we know it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great minds think
Um,
alike.
and, as far as education's concerned, um, lead with the positive. If you're talking to somebody, don't my opinion is you don't run in there and go, "This is gonna be awful because, this is why it's wrong, this is why it's not right." And yeah, definitely, thank you. But we want these legislators, and we want the people who are trying to convince to know how important having parrots in our lives is. We want them to see the good things that have been done. I'm sure like Debbie Goodrich and people who do education in schools, you can turn a child's life around by introducing them to an animal, some kind of animal. And it's not just parrots, it's all different. It's reptiles, it's small mammals. Um, and you never know who you're going to touch and change by educating them about this. We
Right?
not, very few people know what life with a bird is like. There's the crazies, all of us. But if you're outside this circle and this industry, you probably have no idea what it entails as far as good care is concerned. What does cruelty look like with a bird? And what does, how many toys, how much food should they get a day? All those kind of
And Robin,
questions.
if I could insert there. So I mentioned we have some animal cruelty across the country, of which, yes, if an animal is being mistreated, please. But as you read further down, they were originally meant to be a dog fighting bill. And you
Mhm.
read further down to where really it only takes a complaint from the neighbor that your bird's too loud or the dog's barking too much, and suddenly they can just come onto your property without a warrant and use force and take your animals from you. That's our Fourth and Fifth Amendment right to due process. And now they're talking they can rehome that before it's ever heard in court. So it's not that we don't want animals protected. We want it
Mhm.
done the proper way,
Right, right. And,
preserving our constitutional rights.
Carrie said, one on one will change the world. And it's so true. There have been studies done where, you know, children who are exposed to animals at a young age, who experience that one on one meeting with an animal, that's the connection right there. I remember doing a thing called Bowl the Planet. It was a conservation bowl-a-thon that happened around the world on the same day with Cub Scouts. I had a Cub Scouts group, and it's done all over. But I got the kids, and they bowled, and they earned money for pledges, and they asked me, could they go camping on their acre of rainforest that they were saving. And no, they couldn't, but, maybe someday. I tried to convince, the savenature.org that they should do that, but it's really about that connection, and for the same reason that, there's always been dialogue in zoos about naming animals, that you don't name them because then, they become anthropomorphized, but there's also a connection. So, it's tough being in that position, but I think you wanna go out there and you wanna educate as many people as possible, because those people are voters, and those people may also
Mhm.
have the ear of a congressman or a representative, whoever. Um, So yeah, I
One of
think
the things I have done is, I make it my business within my city. Um, Approaching these city ordinances are very, very important. City can
Mhm,
set precedent for county, which can set precedent for state. There was about a year that there was a different picture of the city of Tacoma's mayor with every one of my birds. um, and as soon as she was educated, and Flight Club Foundation had a lot to do with that as well. Um, all of those bills, ordinances just kind of started falling by the wayside
mhm,
because we educated people. We took that time and said, this is most animal control officers don't know what proper husbandry looks like for a parrot.
mhm,
I believe Buddy and I we've used an example of an African gray that is plucked but no longer plucks.
mhm.
That animal control officer isn't going to know that. So there are things that make things, you have to really pay attention to these bills.
Yeah, and again, that, the animal control officer that doesn't know. Um, yeah, I remember being involved in a situation years ago where some birds were they were trying to seize some birds, and it was more of a domestic than anything else. But animal control got involved, and the animal control officer that came had no idea even what kind of birds they were. There were some blue-throated macaws, and she's like, "Oh, those are blue and gold, right?" Then it's time to educate, right? It's time to say, "Oh, well, they kind of look like that, but here's how they're different, and they're from, a they have a different habitat. They this, they that, whatever." Um, and excuse me, I remember years ago when you were talking about getting to meet your city officials. Concetta, Del Rocco Ferragamo, and I were doing. They called it Animal Rights Day, and they still do at Mass School of Law. And we set up a table and we were doing some education, and we had a golden conure with us, and we were letting people, hold the conure, blah blah blah. And there was an animal control officer there, and she was not super thrilled about birds. She was like, "Mm." And so we're like, "Oh, well, here, she's really sweet, blah, blah, blah." We put the conure on her shoulder, and doesn't the damn bird just pop the buttons off her epaulets and all the way down her uniform? I was like, "This is not selling our cause." So you got to be careful with stuff like that too.
Right.
People think, well, I love my birds. I'm going to just hand them to this guy. Well, this
No,
my
please
guy
don't
may
do
have
that.
yeah, absolutely not. This guy may have some horrible past experience, and that's the reason he's afraid of birds and what have you. So educate, but do it tactfully, I think is important.
Yes,
You know,
absolutely.
um, when the other thing, and we've touched on this a little bit, is reading a bill carefully because,
Yes.
like you said, it can go from one thing to another in a matter of a line, and you've got to read it. And okay, if you're an insomniac and you can't sleep, this might help. Just say it.
Just saying.
Um,
Yes.
so when we were talking earlier, Jody, you mentioned to me the federal definition of exotic. And
Anything that is not a dog, cat, or rabbit.
so, little Billy's hamster could fall under an exotics ban.
Yes.
Or if you can't have more than 3 pets in a home and Billy has 4 hamsters, 3 exotic pets in a home, and Billy has 4 they don't know if you don't tell them. They know if you don't like them. They do. So, Michelle, we definitely don't want we could use them as, like, lie detectors, but, the liability there is way too high for
Right.
me. So but so exotics, I mean, ridiculously broad term.
Right.
And I think that, like, the folks in New Palestine figured that out.
They
Um,
did. In fact, one of the gals, she said it in the meeting, and said, wow, we didn't know we were going to get this kind of trouble by using the word exotic.
Yeah.
They didn't realize that it was going to affect a local business who comes into their churches and libraries to teach kids. Um, they had no idea. So sometimes, doesn't always happen this way. Um, Sometimes you have to take that chance and step out, send a letter, make a phone call the
Mhm.
clerk. I know that Buddy has been talking to some clerks. I've been talking to some lobbyists when I go to these meetings, and I know don't see it the way I see it, and that's okay because they're going to give me the information I need
Mhm.
to proceed forward. That even if you go and don't testify, it's an experience. It's you can still talk to those people afterwards. It's
Mhm.
the most important meetings are those meetings before and after those hearings, where
Oh,
you have an
definitely.
opportunity to talk to somebody when they're right there in your face and they can't walk away from you.
Yeah. Well, so Carrie just brought up a good point. Flemish rabbits,
I agree.
right? And Adrian says livestock are generally exempted from exotic bans, but may be included in livestock restrictions in neighborhoods. Definitely, my son lives in. The other thing, Adrian, is it can be deeded with a house. So, that's something to keep. That's a whole nother topic, but it's something to think about. My son's home is deeded with no livestock, and he doesn't live in a really congested area or in a city or anything like that, but no livestock. And by livestock, they're talking, chickens, things like that, because he really wants chickens. But yeah, and that's a thing, to consider. So what are we talking about when we're talking about exotic? And are we sure that the people who have proposed these bills really mean exotic?
Right,
I mean,
right,
honestly, until I started looking further into this type of thing, exotic for me was like almost like creepy crawlies and stuff like that. Like that's what I think of as exotic or, super ridiculously rare. That's what comes to mind,
right.
you know?
Even for me, and that new Palestine city councilman who said, you know, what's exotic for me isn't going to be exotic for the next person, is so true because I hear exotic and I think lions, tigers, alligators, and I get where a city wouldn't want a 5 foot alligator walking down their street. I've come face to face with one in Florida. Um, but when you start using the word exotic, it have to be
Mhm,
there's a line there, and and I'm so glad that they went back and they said, we're going to come back with something different. Um, and so sometimes the cities have a different definition for exotic and what they consider exotic.
mhm,
Um, but then again, that gets people where, well, are we breaking the law? That was another thing they figured out. They were trying to fix an 80-year-old ordinance that said you can't have
mhm.
pets.
Yeah,
Didn't realize that they were going to make it even worse and didn't realize that just about everybody in their town, and it's a very small town, was breaking the law.
yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, there are things like
I mean,
that.
I don't see I don't see animal control officers going, in to get little Billy's hamster. Um, but it could happen, maybe
Yeah,
officer so and so had a bad experience with hamsters. I don't know, but we just have to be careful and absolutely no offense to, the people that are writing bills, the people that are sponsoring bills, but having written position statements for an organization, um, yeah, all exotics are and that's kinda what comes to mind, buddy, honestly, is like the alligator in the backyard, or in the swimming pool. Not a wild one, but a pet. But I was gonna say, having written position statements for an organization, we used to sit and spend hours going over, should it be or the? Should it be we strongly suggest or we suggest, or and when you're coming up with those kinds of um, you know, verbiage, you don't always think through every single thing. And I think, the legislators like, oh, exotics, there's not a lot of people that have exotics. So what does that mean? Yeah.
Are you asking me
Um,
what exotic means?
and what is that
Right,
to
and
some?
they want people I mean, there was another really good point made. A 5-foot milk snake is very different than a 5-foot alligator.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so that was another point of there that you couldn't own an animal that was more than 5 foot from tip of nose to tip of tail. So, those were just some things we look for in bills that, they start out looking really good and, yeah, we want that, and then boom. Um, it's confusing with the definition or there's a section that contradicts the other,
Mhm,
um, thing, especially with these animal cruelty laws, because we wanna protect animals, absolutely.
mhm. And,
But
Adrian said, it's important to remember that animal rights extremists' agenda is until there are none. And I think it's important that there are people on both sides of this discussion, and some of them who are feeling, that they are animal on the animal rights side, want to limit some of the things that are happening, and that's their perspective. It's what they've experienced. Maybe they've seen, horrifying things, and that's their frame of reference. And that turns into cruelty, it's considered cruelty, and in a lot of
right,
cases, it is. And when that's what you're seeing and what you're being inundated with, you end up on that side of the fence. But there's still the care that, both sides want exceptional care for these animals. We want it to
right.
be done correctly, done the right way. Um, so I know, Nick, you put in the comments, a way to find who your legislators are. Would you mind just putting that up on the screen? Because I think that's important. Knowing, who your senators, who your representatives are. People don't always know.
No,
Oh, I don't have to worry about that. It's nothing that's going to affect me again. Um, and it's also important. When we were talking, I talked about committee members as well. Um, and Jody and I were talking. Some of the things that the committees that these bills end up in makes no sense at all
none
on the surface.
whatsoever.
I mean, I know on Washington State, when you pull up a bill, you can follow it step by step by step. Um, and some of the committees don't make any sense.
No, they don't, and, what a Ways and Means Committee will do in Washington State, maybe something else different in another state. Um, we you're like, "What is that?" They don't really define those meetings, but and what they mean. The biggest one in Washington State when we follow it, and it'll say, "In committee, third time green." For
Mhm.
us, that means that this is about to pass. This is about to
Yeah.
go to a full floor vote. It's about, and those colors may be different in other states. Maybe other states don't have it. So there was one in, oh, I don't remember what the committee was, Robin. Do you? We just had one of those really weird committees, and you're like, what are they doing? We don't
I mean,
know what they really
Ways and
do.
Means is a big one. The
Lawn
agricultural,
justice, agriculture,
lawn justice,
um,
safety.
oh, community safety. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
Community
big one.
safety is a big one.
So just kind of familiarizing yourself with who the committee members are. If you see that a bill gets sent to a committee, familiarize
Those are
yourself with
also
who
on
that
the
is.
website.
Yes, yes,
Those
the
those
lists are
committee
there.
members are listed under those committees as well, on the websites. Um, and don't be afraid to reach out to them. You
Right.
might get a blanket letter back from their aide.
Hmm.
Um, you might even get a phone call from their aide. I've been, um, talking with a few of our senators' aides, like, for days. trying to stop 2 bills from going to the governor's desk, um, to no avail, and sometimes we just we don't win, and that's okay.
Right.
We go back and we fight it differently. So that just get involved, even if you just go sit and watch a hearing. Just go sit and
Right.
watch
Just
one.
to see,
Doesn't
to
have to be an
experience.
animal one, just go sit and watch.
And, the letter writing is important. If you need help with a letter, so I want
Please
to
reach
go
out
back
to
to,
me.
yeah, this, Nick put this up here. This is how a way to find out your federal, state, and local elected officials. So
Thank you,
easy
Nick.
breezy. Yeah, thank you for putting that up. So
And I can tell you how to
the
get to Washington's, but nobody else. And nobody
um,
else's because it's different.
and writing letters, and sometimes it's, you can write your own. You can, have your perspective in it. It doesn't hurt to have somebody who has experience in legislation take a look at it. You've got a legislative committee through AFA who can take a look at it. I have experience having, I worked on Capitol Hill in Washington, so I know what happens with letters. Sometimes they get read. They usually
And
get read by a legislative assistant or a legislative aide. And then that all gets digested and given to the legislator. Um, Jody, what are the points that people should be including in letters?
The points people should be including definitely when make sure you read through the definitions and that they're clear definitions. Some of the bigger points are, is there already a law on the books regarding this in the state? Because we don't need more laws, we just need to enforce current ones. Um, we talk about those things because when we run into the, am I breaking the law? Am I not breaking the law? Um, the Traveling Animal Act 5065, which hit our governor's desk this morning. In one part, it says the animals that it targets. But in the very next line, it says the definition of Traveling Animal Act is any person that uses any animal
Mhm.
for entertainment purposes. Those are the things you're looking for. Those are the things that the points you're making. You want to talk about the safety of those animals if somebody's going to go in and take them, and where are they going to
Mhm.
go and how dangerous that is, for somebody who doesn't know how to handle them. Because
Right.
here now they can take them to any 501c3 they want, and it doesn't matter if they have experience with that particular species or animal. So those are the things that we make a point of. New Palestine, they had a falconry thing. They didn't even know. Let the state know that you would think the state knows falconry is federally regulated. Sometimes they don't know. Bring that up.
Right.
Um,
And, I mean, honestly, Jody, I think, like a traveling animal ban, you know,
yeah,
Animal Act ban. I can almost guarantee those legislators weren't thinking a bird show. They were thinking lions, tigers, and bears. Oh my!
that is exactly.
And
That's absolutely right.
but it gets lumped in. Yeah, Nick just posted a traveling animal act is a school assembly.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
It's
absolutely.
you bring, a couple of your birds to your kids' class. Is there anything in that bill, Jody, about it being compensated or no? Like paid?
No, no.
No. So, yeah. I mean,
And they
and
told
again,
and they verbally tell you, "Oh, we're not after parrots here. It's about," and this one was elephants, bears, and non-human primates. Really what they wanted was a circus band
mhm,
that turned into, and we have a few really big parrot shows out here
mhm,
that now those owners are that do this are like, "Well, now what?" So we
right.
did work with trying to get them to change the name or be more definitive, and sometimes they just won't do it.
Mhm. And
Sometimes they're pulling up those.
animal cruelty is another one. I mean, that definition of what is animal cruelty. Is it
Mhm.
USDA regs? Is it, Fish and Wildlife? Where does that where does that line come? Is it, I didn't change the papers in the cage today. I did it yesterday and I felt crappy today, so I didn't do it today. So now is that a uninhabitable living space? I mean, those are the kind of question, and when we talk about asking questions or bringing things up to legislators, please don't be belligerent, because being
Please don't.
belligerent, you can go in there guns blazing, I'm going to fight for my rights and blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to fight for my right to have pets. And you're not going to get anywhere because then you're going to be labeled the crazy, whatever, fill in the blank, the crazy hamster lady, the crazy parrot lady, whatever that may be. Be passionate, but be professional. I think that's important.
Dress
Excuse me.
appropriately, be professional, um, the whole rah-rah, and, I wish somebody had warned me of this. Somebody from your opposition is gonna cry during these sessions, that emotion. They wanna see emotion, but they don't wanna see that kind of emotion. They're gonna turn it off.
Mhm.
Um, some states, like I can tell you the state of Washington, big on kids and animals. They don't want to take away from educating kids.
Mhm.
They also don't want to lose revenue for their own state. So figure out what are those most important things that your state cares about
Mhm.
and how some of these bills will affect those things and use
Yeah.
that. And
I
Adrian
I
just said
like.
the original intent was to end the circus.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it was. So
Mhm.
it's all about how a bill reads. And because all of a sudden you have these animal control officers, law enforcement officers, and they don't really know what they're enforcing. What they see is, oh, that's an exotic animal, or oh, they're performing. It would affect me if I wanted to do a booth at an expo. And how many of our parrots just put their wings up all the time? And are they going to consider that performing? Well, they absolutely
Mhm.
can, but it's the most natural thing a parent can do.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
put really everything at risk.
And Adrian's birds love classrooms, so we need to make sure that the birds
Yes,
stay in the classrooms. Here, Adrian. Good. I absolutely agree. So letters, if you need help, reach out and get that help. Maybe it's your state coordinator, maybe it's somebody in your state, or it's somebody on the legislative committee who can help you with those letters. Testimony at hearings. So that's super scary, right? You
it
hear
is.
that and you haven't
Can
ever
be.
done it, and you're like, not happening. So let's talk about that, Jody.
So I remember the first time I did it when I was really young. I was scared to death. But you're just getting up and talking to a group of people. They may
Mhm,
ask you questions at the end, and after the first time you do it, it it's just having a conversation. Are you the center of attention? Absolutely. Don't let it scare you. Just go up and act like you're having a conversation, um, like you and I are talking now. Or
mhm.
don't let it be scary. Because
Yeah.
it's not that scary.
No,
They'll
it's
let you
it's
know when
just
your time is up.
it's telling
They'll
somebody how
thank
you
you.
feel,
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
and how this affects the bigger picture. And I think that's
Yeah.
important. Um, so there are strong feelings on both sides. And how do you determine which side works for you? And Jody and I wanted to do this because there is so much going on right now. Honestly, I mean, legislation is always important. It's always been, it's always out there. It's an ongoing process. But right now, there is so much. I mean, 22, you said, right?
Yes.
Okay, so
22 in
22 bills
15 states.
right now. And so, that's why we're making such a big deal out of it right now. But it needs to be an ongoing vigilance. And when you're looking at where you want to land on something. You find out about a bill that's come up. When you're deciding where you want to land, one of the things I want to say is when you're looking at social media, please be careful what you like and what you don't like. Um, Anyone who is posting on social media, good, bad, or indifferent, they have an agenda. You know, okay, so when I post pictures of my granddaughter, my agenda is to let you guys know that I have the cutest grandchild on the planet. When I post about birds, it's because I want people to know that birds are important to me, that having birds in our lives is important to me. If I post about something I don't like, it's my personal agenda. You've got to be careful when you read anything. Read it with a critical eye on social media. I've been reading, there are posts out there from both sides of the fence, and they're starting to get like this. It's not necessary. It's an opinion. We're all entitled to them. I
Mhm.
mean, what do you think, Jody, as far as social media stuff
So
is
one
concerned?
social media stuff that it is exactly that, and I run from social media as much as I can because of that. Because we all have the right to our opinion. We all
Mhm,
have the right to feel the way we feel. That's part of what being a U.S. citizen is all about. Living here,
mhm.
and you know, my opinion may differ from Adrian's or whatever, but that God-given right to speak that opinion and go to these
Mhm,
meetings, and I'm gonna go back to testifying, just like your opposition has the right to be there, you have that same right, and don't
mhm.
let them scare you off, but make an informed decision. Don't go off of social media. And yes, you do have the cutest grandchild in the world.
Thank you, Nick.
Do I get bonus points for that? So don't let it run you off, but don't pick the fight. Don't, because then it just becomes drama. It becomes what we're fighting for, whatever it is you're fighting for becomes lost in
Mhm.
that difference of opinion.
Yeah.
That's where I feel about that.
I agree with you 100%. Like, I keep my grandmother's voices in my head, that you get more flies with sugar than you do with vinegar, right? Isn't that
Mm,
you get more flies with honey?
yeah,
Um, and it's true. I mean, you don't have to love what these people, the people on the other side are saying. You just have to listen because you expect others to listen to you. So you need to listen and understand that your opposition is coming at it with a very strong feeling as well. It may not be your feeling, but listen to what's being said. Have civil discussions. Don't go at it, super hard. That's not how you win the battle. You go at it, and by being there, by showing up, by testifying,
right,
by writing those letters, by paying attention, being aware. We call this legislative awareness for a reason.
right.
Um,
And that's another thing about social media. Something I picked up on in the New Palestine Council meeting. They were paying attention to people's Facebook posts about this in the
yeah.
comments and the back and forth arguing. That's never a good look for your legislative people. It never is. Let them do the arguing. They're going to argue amongst each other on the floor debate. And I hadn't even thought about it until that councilman said, I've been watching the Facebook post. And I thought, oh, wow. So take it from that somebody that is important to hear what you have to say is watching that post.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, and the legislators don't want to get anybody mad. Yeah, Nick said community groups are a hit with the local politicians, and it's true. And they don't want to take off their constituency. They want to hear what they want to see. They may not want to talk to you face to face because you're just kind of, I got stuff to do. Get away from me, kid. You bother me. But they wanna see what the consensus is. They wanna see what their constituents want, and that's you guys. That's everybody out there who, regardless of where you fall, you have an opinion, and as a constituent, you have a right to make that opinion known. So I think that's, it's important. There's a lot to learn about this, a lot to be done as far as this is concerned. But, and we're going to be this is an ongoing process. This is not, a sprint to the finish. This is the
Right.
marathon, you
And if you
know.
need help or you need suggestions, please reach out to myself, Buddy Waskey, um, Abbott Hoffman, Adrian Mock, who Adrian has a ton of information and a ton of knowledge. And we are here to help you and help with letters, whatever it is, and may even send a letter on AFA's behalf. So don't
Mhm.
hesitate to reach out. And um, because things change on a dime's notice,
Yeah.
on a
And
dime.
and I think too, you know, they're not the enemy. People who are on another side of a bill from you, they're not the enemy. They're your opposition in that situation. But maybe when that piece of legislation is either passed or vetoed, after that, maybe you work with the other side and you figure out. I'm a big fan of, we all have to stand together, regardless of, because we're there for the birds. You're not going to find anybody on either side of the fence who is not there for the birds. Well, you might, but then, we just don't pay
Mm,
attention to those people. We
right.
don't play with them. But there's a lot to be done, and you guys are going to be seeing a lot of stuff out there. And please, if, like we said, if you see something, bring it to someone on the legislative committee's attention. They
Yes.
need, they need your help. And I know we're going to be doing a lot of stuff around education. Um, yeah, so there's a lot that needs to be done. But last words for people, Jody, so that they can be up on things.
Just don't be afraid to do it. Just do it. It's a learning process. I didn't do it. I didn't do it quote unquote the right way. The first time I was scared out of my mind, but I started in DC, and that's not the place to start. Um, but just I'm going to use Adrian, and I'll probably get it in reverse order. Step up, stand up, say something.
Yeah,
Um, you
yeah.
know, um, so and Abbott just said, "I'm just speaking the truth on a change." We from the other day, know that we're not always. You are not always going to come out on the side that you want it to be done, but those legislators still listen to you, and you can go to them afterwards before the next
Mhm.
session and see if we can get something in there. There are things that can be done. Don't don't let it intimidate you.
Right. And just so you guys know, there's more information to come. There's the legislative night that there always is at the conference in September, and we're also going to be doing a workshop with lots of time to practice, and it'll be fun. So in it
I'll be speaking for the Indiana Bird Club as well in May about
Nice.
this same subject.
All right. And I don't know, Adrian, if you were on when we started, but we really want to thank you for the work that you've done all these years on legislation, and you were an incredible vice president, legislative vice president, and you've moved on to education, which is exciting. Looking forward to some. She's going to teach the kids about the legislation. There we go. We're going to have little ones. That was a tactic at a recent hearing. There were
It was a
children
tactic
involved.
at a recent hearing. They do like to use junior high kids and
So
so
we need to get out there and educate the kids, and so we got Adrian on that case right now. So we
thank you,
wanted to thank
Adrian.
you, Adrian. So thank you, Jody. And if
Thank
anybody
you.
wants to help with this, I'm sure Jody would be happy to hear from you.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I just need to do a couple more reminders. Please support the Rockstar Tour. The official tour schedule, if I can get my acting gear, will be announced this weekend. As soon as we can get that out, we're going to get T-shirts designed. And I don't know if I know Jodie has a shirt from last year. They're fun shirts. We did it through Custom Ink, so there'll be an announcement of that. Leather Elves are also adding a chance for people to save on toys. Wednesdays will now be known as Wacky Wednesdays. Each week, we're going to feature a toy or like group of toys that will be available for 24 hours at a dramatically discounted price. And the Leather Elves page on Wednesday will have that. So you never know when your bird's favorite toy is going to come up. I see Carrie asked about who'll be in Raleigh the end of May. Don't confuse people, Carrie. Raleigh, the end of May, is the Raleigh Durham Cage Bird Club show. And then September is going to be AFA in Raleigh. Adrian says the more we go to you took it away. Here we go. The more we go to legislative meetings and talk to legislators, the more often we will be the go-to for them. We are the experts. Yeah, that's really important. A lot of times people are put up as experts who really are not. The more you get to know them, the more they know what you know, and the more they come to you when they're creating legislation. So a lot of stuff to think about. Thank you, Jodie. Thank you,
Thank you for
Adrian,
having me.
Buddy, all of you guys for working so hard on this. We're going to keep working hard, and hopefully
We are.
you win some, you lose some, but
Don't
the wins
forget,
feel good.
watch the AFA website for alerts if you need them.
There we go. All right. Well, you guys have a great week. Thank you, Jodie. And we will see you guys soon. Take care.
Bye-bye.